We're believing total abstinence. But the way Ann is looking at this story is that the wine is representing whatever we need in our life. And when it has totally run out, what do we do? Whether we've totally run out of money, whether we've run out of love, whether we've run out of energy, whatever we have run out of, that we are desperate for Him. And I just absolutely love this lady, and I am so grateful that she chose to be transparent enough to share her story, because the story that she shares is that she married a man who became a dentist, and I believe he was about 10 years older than she was. She married very young, late teenager, maybe 17 or 18 years old. Started off with a great wedding, had I think 3 kids, not too far apart from each other, so she's dealing with exhaustion. She's teaching a Bible study. About 500 women are coming to her Bible study. You know, they're involved in church. Her husband's building a business. They're just busy, busy, busy. And she awakens one morning, and in great tears and desperation, panic, feeling trapped, she realized there's no love left in the marriage. And what is she going to do? Because the wine has run out of their marriage. She says they were overtaken by busyness, and she came to realize the marriage was loveless. Now, I don't think she meant there that they loved less than they did on their honeymoon. I think she meant like what I mean when I'm gluten-free. I don't do gluten. There are some people in the family that are gluten-less, meaning they just eat significantly less gluten. But what I understood Ann to mean here, she is in a marriage, 3 kids, public figures, totally involved in the church, and she awakens to realize there's no love in the marriage. Now, for those of you who are not married, I don't want you to think, well, I might as well go and take mine out early, because what's this session got to do with me? Have you ever been in any relationship where there is no love? It doesn't have to be a marriage. It can be a parent-child where there's stress, a sibling relationship, a church relationship, or if all of your relationships are wonderful, and if you're that person, would you raise a hand? Every relationship in your life is wonderful? All right, now don't y'all all sit there and commit the sin of jealousy and coveting. Okay. Covet the best gifts. That's not the green-eyed monster jealousy, though. That's the biblical mandate to covet the best gifts. So, okay. So most of us have a desperate need in our life, and in this story of Jesus turning the water into wine, whatever wine you have run out of, just call that your desperate need. And I loved what she said, and I'm sort of skipping ahead, and I'm coming back to what she does with the marriage. What she says about her teaching and how I so relate to this. This was one of my favorite things that she said, that when we are teaching and, you know, we bring God the water, the servants could put in the water, so we bring the water, we bring whatever study preparation we've done, we bring whatever praying, whatever fasting we've done, but unless God turns it into wine, you could have just all stayed home. So does that make sense? I just loved how she said that we just need God's anointing and Him to do the changing. Like the Holy Spirit intercedes for us. He takes our prayers, and by the time they get to the throne room, I just think their prayers way different than what we prayed, because He has changed them. He makes intercession for us. So back to the marriage. If you'd been Ann's best friend, and she chose to confide in you, and she said, there's no love left in our marriage. You know, I'm committed to my marriage vows. Am I just doomed to be trapped in a loveless marriage for the rest of my life? She'd come to you for counseling. What would you have told her? Would you have said, don't you dare let anybody know that? You can't let the world know that that's going on in Billy Graham's daughter's life.
I'd ask her what happened to her.
The only thing she shared in the book is that they were overtaken by busyness, and sure.
Good to see you.
Good to see you. This is Greg. husband of Miss Tara. But I don't think you have to have anything to quote happen. And let's just take this out of the marriage, because how many of you are not married? How many in here are not married? So, well, a few,
3 or 4.
five or six people,
Yeah,
plus
5
our
or
2
6.
young people. Okay, in any relationship, in a friendship, if you just get so busy and it's just easy to grow apart. You get so caught up in your own to-do list, your own responsibilities, your own interests. And unless you work on it, is that not true in any relationship? Unless you work on a marriage, unless you work on a friendship, unless you work on whatever and put some kind of investment in it, they don't just stay there, right?
You
In a
commit to
sense.
love, then you work on, you commit to do it every day.
Say that again?
Love, don't look at love as an emotion. It's the result of your decision.
It's a commitment.
It's a commitment.
It's a
Your
commitment.
emotions result from your commitments and your.
But I took her to mean when she said it was loveless, that there was just no emotion left. Yeah, they were committed to the vows, but that's not the same thing as having an intimate relationship at all. It was just a shell. And I have been there where relationships are a shell.
It's an empty place to be.
It's an empty, desperate, feeling trapped,
Yes.
no way out place to be. And what do you do about it? Tomorrow,
Go back to where it started, where you start feeling that way.
Well, it's not that easy.
Return her to your first love.
return into your first love. Margaret, did you want to say something? Return into your first love. Tomorrow I'm going to share one of the reasons, sort of another paragraph in the same chapter, but today I wanted to share with you what God did with her in this situation. And again, apply that to all of us, because we can run out of, we can run out of patience, we can run out of kindness, out of time, we can run out of friends. I remember the day I knelt in my den back in the 70s, because I lived in Noonan. At the time, I don't think Debbie was even married. So all of my family was in Carrollton, and I hadn't gotten that bonded yet with my in-laws, because we had been married that long, and I realized I don't have a friend in this whole entire town. It's very lonely. So you can run out or be out of anything, just fill in the blank, whatever is your need that's desperate right now. So, she didn't know what to do, so she took her situation to the Lord. And if you will turn to 1 John chapter 4, I want to share with you the steps that God instructed her to follow. What is 1 John chapter 4?
The love chapter about salvation, about loving God, isn't it? All of 1 John kind of about loving God.
1 John chapter 4. Let me get my Bible there. Okay, now this is not the John where we were about the miracle. We're through with that for right now. This is over toward the end of your Bible. 1st, 2nd, 3rd John, Jude, and Revelation. Because I don't know that I have ever heard this passage of Scripture given for marriage counseling. But I don't know of a better one to give. Okay? So, 1 John chapter 4, we would start with verse 7 when we get there. But first, I want to just read to you what God told her to do, because I think this is one of the best prescriptions, the best remedies, and I think everybody needs to kind of have this in your file of counseling notes, because how many marriages do you know where there is no love left, or they are staying together for the sake of whatever, because it's too impractical to divorce, because they're committed to the vow, they don't have a better option, they don't have the money, it costs too much to divorce, whatever the situation is. She took this couple to the Lord, And so I wanted to read with you what the Lord told her to do about that. Just give me 1 minute, or I want to go right here. All right. She is also in this same chapter discussing counseling another couple at some point in their life, where she takes the couple to Jesus and she says they have no more love for each other, they have no more patience, they have no more kindness. So what are we supposed to do about that, Lord? So when she takes this to the Lord about her own marriage, she says God began to give her verse by verse instructions on what she needed to do. And what I loved about this story, the happy ending of course, but what I loved about it, who is taking the marriage to the Lord? Anne is. This could have also been the husband. It could have been either one, so either spouse. But what I loved about God's instructions to her, and what I think we forget too many times, she's the one who took the problem to the Lord. The Lord gave her the answer, and none of the answer was contingent on him.
Amen. Absolutely.
Because if we believe the lie that our happiness, our peace is controlled by another person, how will we ever
It will be.
free?
Mm-hmm.
That's a very good finish to that sentence. If we believe that, it will be.
Yeah.
That's good. Thank you. Okay. She took her petition to the Lord, and somewhere in here I believe she did say that she was including what all's wrong with Danny. You've heard Debbie talk about that confession she made from way back decades and decades ago. I mean, how many of us have not ever been there? And it, again, doesn't have to be a marriage. You're pointing out other people's flaws in this relationship, or how they have messed up, or they have done you wrong.
Always the other person.
At least their percentage always looks more than ours. Okay, this is what she heard the Lord say. And I'm sure it's not what she would have preferred to hear. The Lord said to her, you are to love Danny because, what do you think God's going to say? You are to love him because I first loved you. As many times as I've read this passage, I have never thought to put it into a marriage application. If you say you love God but don't love your husband, I'm paraphrasing what John said. This is an ouch, y'all. You are a liar. Is that what he said there? Let us love one another, for love is of God, and everyone that loveth is born of God and knoweth God. He that loveth not knoweth not God, for God is love. And it goes on down somewhere, right? If we say we love him, we'll get to that in just a minute. Oh, verse 20, if a man say, I love God. Okay, John said hated his brother, so I don't know if that'd be exactly the same as not loving. You cannot love somebody and not hate him, right? If a man say, I love God and hate his brother, then John says he is a what? Verse 20, what does it say?
He's a liar.
He's a liar. For he that loveth not his brother whom he has seen, how can he love God whom he hath not seen? Okay, let's get back to what God told Ann. You are to love Danny because I first loved you. If you say I love God, yet you don't love Danny, you are a liar. Would y'all still be standing up if God told you that? Because if you don't love your husband whom you have seen, you cannot love me whom you have not seen. This is tough. So I give you this command. If you love me, you must. It's not an option. You must love Danny. Dear Ann, love one another, for love comes from me. Everyone who loves has been born of me and knows me. Y'all still with me? I think I borrowed Dr. Paul's. Y'all okay now? Through his gentle words, oh, don't you just love it that God told her that in gentleness?
Mm-hmm.
You know, I've had parents tell me, I heard one parent say one time about a child that was just totally driving them nuts. And I still grieve. And I wouldn't tell you who this was for anything in the world. I still grieve when I can hear her words. The mom told me about that child. She said, she's not worth it. Ooh. I'm so glad God never thought I wasn't worth all the trouble I caused him. Okay. Through his gentle words, God laid out 3 basic principles about her love for Danny. Don't you think during that prayer sometimes she wanted to say, but Lord, what about him? The first is that love comes from where?
God.
Love comes from God. And then we can just all say with her, we don't have within us the ability to manufacture love for anybody when the love runs out. And you know, I can just say, I don't have the ability to manufacture love when I never had any to start with. I occasionally, this doesn't happen often, but I occasionally have somebody that comes into my life. I just don't really connect with that person instantly. I can sort of take you or leave you. And that's not true for most people. Most people, we just have an instant God connection. You know, most of my piano students I just instantly love, or we connect, or I'm glad to have you. But occasionally somebody will be brought into my life and it's like, I'm aware that I don't have enough love for this person. So I just have learned, and you know, this is a prayer God always answers. I would just confess and be honest, Lord, I don't have enough love for John or Jane. I'm involved with this person. I need you to help me, and God always answers that prayer. He will always start giving me love for that person. He just does. But first I have to want it. So we can't manufacture the love, but God is more than willing to give it to us. The second is those who are able to love others, including spouses. And again, instead of your spouse, if you're not having any trouble loving your spouse, put that person. Does everybody in here have one person that you're just still challenged to love? A little bit? Marie's looking at me like,
Yes. Oh, yes.
okay. Those who are, you have a list? Okay. Those who are able to love others, including spouses or including kids. You know, and before we get judgmental about that, Paul writes that there were younger women that had to be taught to do what Mom never got this verse because she doesn't identify, this is one verse you don't identify with, right?
Love her children.
Where Paul said you have to teach the women to love their children.
Oh,
I know you don't identify with that
From
verse.
day one, when I got saved and read through the Bible, how could that possibly be? I still have a problem with that verse.
Okay,
Boy,
Because everybody wasn't born with it.
knowing how to be a mom. For some of us, learning how to be a mom was, being a mom is one of my absolute greatest blessings. I would die for either one of my kids in a heartbeat and counted the joy to do so. But being a mom was hard because I thought when I left home, because I knew how to do all the bottles and the diapers and getting the kids to sleep, that I had that parent thing. It's like, I just never worried about that. I got that one done. Until the day Mom left after Craig was born, and I thought, what do I do now? Okay, totally off the subject. Back to this. Everybody's just not born knowing that.
Amen.
Everybody's not born knowing how to be a wife, how to be a husband, how to be a parent, how to be a church member. You know, the
I'm
church.
convinced we're not born on how to do anything right, per se.
Okay.
I married an only child, he didn't know how to share.
He didn't know how to what?
He didn't know how to share.
Okay, what'd you say, Miss Linda?
I said, God should have looked at me and learned.
Yes, he did. That's just exactly what he told her. You could summarize everything he told her just by that. Okay, the second is, if you're able to love, then that means you've been born of God if you can't truly love others if you've not been born again because you don't have the love in you. You don't have his love in there. God is love. Okay. The third is, if we are able to love others, even when the love runs out, then we are not only born of God, but we also know God. I didn't have time to study and get enough distinction about what it means, and frankly, I never thought about that there is a distinction, but it specifically says that in one of these verses that we just read. He that loveth not knoweth not God, for God is love. Verse 7, where it says, let us love one another, for love is of God, and everyone that loveth is what? Born of God, but then it makes a distinction, and knows him. So I'm thinking that means, is this right, that you can be born again but not really know him?
And we got a world for it.
Is that true?
That's what it says.
Because there is a distinction made there. So, are we born again, but also do we know him?
Look how many babies who didn't have the real mother.
Absolutely. Okay. In other words, if God lives within us, then his love for Danny, just fill in your blank, your parent, child, spouse, whomever, was available to me in proportion to my knowledge of him. Read that one again.
Please.
All right. God lived within me. So his love for Danny was available to me to the degree that I knew the Lord. See, God's got love for our spouses, our kids, our parents, our siblings, our church people. He's got the love. So as much as we know him, as much as we have that channel, that he is the vine, we are the branch, then that love will flow through us, and it comes from him. God said, if you are not able to love Danny, it's because you do not know me. Doesn't mean she wasn't saved, because I believe she was just as saved when this happened in her life as she is today. Because I am loved. I am loved. I realized that knowing God was more than just being saved or being born again. This is so good right here. Because just as knowing my husband was way more than saying the marriage vows at the wedding altar. You know, I thought I knew Colin when we got married. Because we had known each other for 8 years. We met when we were 12. And then I thought I knew him 5 years later and 10 years later, and you know, we're still learning. And we have been married 47 years.
We'll still be learning in 51 years.
We'll still be learning after 51 years. Okay. Knowing God. Oh, and I just want to throw this out. What does it mean to know God? It is an intimate, personal relationship developed over time through prayer, Bible study, and then this A word, application of what we learn through obedience and experiencing the power of God. Let me go back and say that again. Knowing God involves an intimate, personal relationship that is developed over time through prayer and getting answers to prayer through Bible study and applying its teaching through obedience and experiencing the power of God. And then I love this last one. Knowing him means moment by moment submission to him that results in a moment by moment filling of his spirit. Are you with me?
Yes.
As tears rolled down my face, I knew God had given me the key to change my marriage. And again, Danny's not involved in it at all. Instead of us, which we could easily do going to that, but that's so not fair. He's at least half the problem. Do you see how this is really freedom? Because all it takes is obedience to what he says. You cannot have any control over another person. But God has total power if we are obedient. I had been trying so hard to please Danny, to be the wife he seemed to want. She had read all the marriage books that she could find. But as she tried harder and harder, the burden got heavier and heavier. Final key to turning the water into wine in her marriage. This sounds so contradictory, but it is so like God. The final key was not to focus on my relationship with Danny. Just surrender it, let it go. But to focus on my relationship with God. Do we get that?
Yes.
What if the church world got hold of this? Woo!
Glory down here.
We'd have glory.
Our nation would get better real quick.
Our nation would get better. Our
Well, we-
churches would get better. Our homes would get better.
One reason people don't wanna do that though is because then they gotta deal with them and not the other person. As long as it's the other person's fault, you're not having to clean out your own.
You can't fix another person. What was it you said at the beginning of this session that was so good? I forgot what I said and you finished it and it was so good. I wish we could repeat it. You remember?
You said that if your happiness relies on another person, it will.
If you believe that, it will. That was so good. If you believe your happiness is contingent on another person, it will. And let me just say, absolutely the relationship.
That's a lie, if you believe that lie.
Yeah. The relationship, the fellowship we have. I can't have fellowship with you without your contribution. But I can love you. Mother made a statement. She made the statement several times. I thought, where did you ever get that? That would have never crossed my mind. I'm too selfish to ever come up with that thought in the first place. But it is so freeing. It is so profound. She said, and I don't know who she was talking about at the time, I love him so much, it didn't matter if they loved me or not. I just love him so much. I thought, well, it matters to me if they love me back. I love him so much, it doesn't matter if they love me or not.
Talking about my children.
I thought you were, but I wasn't going to get that public with your private comments. I love him so much, but I never thought of that. I mean, I want my kids to love me back. But we love him so much. You just have to, you can't force people to love you.
I've known a few people who love their spouse like that. Their real spouses did. I had, one lady, this is public knowledge. It's not taught, it's taught in college classroom. And she told her husband to go live with her, the one he was having a affair with. And 6 months, she knew it would be over, and she'd be waiting for her.
Did y'all hear that? A lady that she knew,
She's still living. I mean,
the lady knew that her husband was having an affair. So she says, go live with her. Did she give him the 6 months time limit?
said, yeah.
Go live with her for 6 months. And I don't know if she told him this or not, but she knew that within 6 months he would see that it's
told
wrong.
me that.
Oh, okay, she said, well, I'll be waiting for you when you realize that's not what you want. Most of us would have said, I'd be waiting for you with him.
It's just a time. It's just a time of lust. All it is.
It is a time of lust.
And lust is not love. Lust is not love.
You want the mic,
Lust
Mom?
wears off. And true love,
Went out there lusting in the first place.
well, he wasn't saying it, I know it is.
What if he didn't get saved?
I just never forget those.
Confess to all of you, I need more love. I mean, I've come a long way from where I was 5, 10, 20 years ago. But I just don't know that I could have said that.
I wonder how many people in here could say that.
No. I think it's.
Well, we better not start crying. Let's just leave that one alone.
Nobody's saying it's not love.
Huh?
You don't believe there's any.
She didn't condone it.
No, I
That's,
believe the woman
that
said
wasn't
that. I
condoning
just
it.
know I couldn't.
It sounds like it was. That's why.
okay, I don't think it was. They're saying that sounds like she was condoning the sin. I don't think that was true at all. No. It's just like the father that let the prodigal go to the far country. He wasn't condoning for 1 second what that boy's gonna do.
No.
But he had to let him go because the kid had to come home by his own free will.
That's right.
And I think that's all she was doing. She was a Hosea.
Everything we
She was a
I don't
She
know.
was a
I
Hosea.
think we might be tuned in. I think
She was a.
we're on the right way now.
And did he come home? Okay, let's move on. I'm about to close it.
Come home.
To what?
No, he didn't ever go back.
Did he come home?
No.
No?
So she didn't drive the spirit, so she wouldn't have said
Thank you so much. Can we ready to close this up? Let me give you the concluding comments. As if you didn't hear the end of the story, the man did not come home. Some in our group believe that she should have never said that. Whether or not that was a wise thing to say, it would have never come out of my mouth.
Maybe that was God giving her strength to let go. I mean,
Well, how sweet of you.
putting in her mind that I'll be back in 6 months, staying for those 6 months to get over it and move on.
She said maybe that was God's way of giving her the strength to let him go, thinking that he would be back in 6 months, and then in 6 months, I guess she realized she could survive without him. I don't know. Interesting story. Mom will continue with that tonight, maybe. Personal application. All right, let me conclude this. What is it, y'all?
I'd have gave Laura a bullet to take with
I get that.
They didn't have that on your conscience to live with the rest of your life. He said that should not kill.
All right. All right, y'all ready? Can I continue here?
Yes.
She said, as I spent time with God, growing in my knowledge of Him through prayer, Bible study, obedience, and submission, He filled my life. And because God is love, and because He filled me, His love also filled me. Therefore, since God loved Danny, love for Danny would fill my life and overflow from God through me to my husband. I cannot express the joy and relief that swept over me. The instructions were clear. Okay, you might want to write these down. There's 3 things if you want to have this at your fingertips to share with other people. The first 3 that come from 1 John chapter 4, love comes from God. Because this is a question you could give for anybody in any marriage, even if it's not one where it's love less. Maybe you just want to go from where you are to the next dimension up. See what I'm saying? You don't have to wait till your marriage gets in a crisis to apply this. You know, because if we apply this, then we'll quit nagging more, we'll start thinking more positive thoughts, and we'll start focusing more like, I have such a wonderful picture from Debbie and other people in my family. You start seeing the cup more half full instead of half empty. You start seeing what part of the to-do list they do get done instead of what they don't do. Love comes from God, number 1. If we're born of God, we can love others. Since God is love, He loves all, so we have love for fill in the blank inside of us. So love comes from God. Those born of God are able to love if you know God. And then number 3, those able to love, this is number 3, the know God. Those able to love even when the love runs out are those not only born of God, but that they know Him. And that's to know Him. I already gave you that definition a while ago.
What was the second one?
Those born of God are able to love others.
What about 1 Corinthians 13, when it said love endures? Love is kind.
Well, don't you think she was having to endure during all these months when there was no love?
She did endure.
Yes, she did.
Well, so the love was just over suffocated with something else. I believe the love was down in there, and God had some killing her. She had to do something.
Okay.
Does that make sense to you? That makes sense to you?
Yes, life suffocated.
Yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't lost because we got that rhema from Revelation. The love wasn't lost. She just had to return to it. Yes, ma'am.
Can you give us all 3 again? Some of us didn't get it.
Sure. Let me give you those again.
Oh,
All right, and then I also need to give you this next thing, so you don't expect to go home and put 1, 2, 3 in practice. You wake up next week, nothing's changed. Well, what Barbara said didn't work anyway. I need to give you the next paragraph that goes with this before we close. All right, give me those 3 again. All right, God told her you are to love Danny, 1 John 1:4, because I love you. If you don't love him whom you have seen, you can't love me. And I'll throw in here a comment from Reese Howell. I read this comment from him decades ago, and I'm still trying to convince myself that he's totally right. Because I don't want him to be right. Because Reese Howell said, well, I don't want this to be right. I'm hoping he's wrong. But the comment always comes back. That your love for God is how much you love the person you love the least. That's not a direct quote, but it's something like that. Do you remember him saying that?
Yes,
Yes.
I've heard that before.
And I don't want that to be my measure. I want the measure of my love for God to be,
Unless you got
huge.
your kids.
If I love the person you love the least more.
I can barely tolerate looking at him.
But like you said, we cannot manufacture our own love.
He's God's child.
He's not saved.
Yeah, but God still loves him as much as he loves me or you.
Hey, God is
We were getting our seat.
God is the Father of all. And it's one of the people on this planet.
When you go back to Gary Smalley definition, it makes it much easier.
Okay, thank you. Maybe you were giving me an out for this. Thank you, because I'm thinking I don't have any emotional
You do
feelings for
not
this
have
man
to
at
have-
all.
That is not
He's a
love.
politician, okay? Can I just say that?
Yeah.
Y'all are trying to figure out somebody in my family. No, it's not anybody in my family. It's somebody in the political world. But I don't want him to go to hell. I do want him to get saved.
That's exactly right.
Yes.
Gary Smalley says
I don't want anybody to go
love
to
is a
hell.
choice, love is a decision.
Okay,
Yes.
but I don't want to think that
Emotions
my, okay.
are not love. You
Thank you.
feel emotions as a result of your decision.
Yes.
And when you look at love that way, it's much easier to love everybody. I can love a lot of people. I do not have to like how they
That is
talk.
absolutely
I do not
true.
have to like
You don't
how they
have to
live.
like people that
I
you
don't
can
have to
love.
like how they act.
There you go. Maybe that's it.
But
Maybe
I
I just
can
don't
love
like
them.
him
I can
at
want
all.
them to get saved. I can sure love them and not want
Maybe
them
I'm
to
not
go
quite
to
as bad as I
hell.
thought.
We all feel it.
We don't live by our emotions. If we do, we're in trouble anyway.
Thank you. So I wish Reese would have defined, I gotta go pull that book back out and see exactly how he said that. All right, the 3 again.
It should grieve us.
It does grieve me
Okay.
for the state our country's in, for the people in the Supreme Court that have put it here, for the leadership.
I think there's a huge difference in a decision to love somebody and then them being disgusting to us. That's hate. And so you gotta differentiate the two. That's two different things.
But it is totally true, because I heard a Bible teacher say this one time, and I just wanted to hold up, I do not agree card. I heard a Bible teacher say one time that you can't love somebody you don't like. Like is a step toward the loving process, and I thought that is just not right at all.
How can that be
Yeah.
true when you have family? There's like tons of family they don't like, but I love them because they're part of my family.
Okay, Sarah, you're very honest with us today.
They're not here
Here's
and
your
they
quote.
don't hear from me, they don't call me, so.
You can't
I
hold
love
it
them.
against the politician either,
Reese.
Because the politician is right, it's God's plan. Whatever
Oh,
the
I know.
politician is doing, it's God's plan.
God is allowing. He's the one who puts people in leadership. Okay, maybe I just need to change it to the word like. Okay. And that is one of the reasons that I want to see Daniel when I get to heaven. I want to know how you went to Babylon and honored those ungodly pagan kings to the degree that they elevated you about as high as a human could go without being king. Because Daniel makes me feel about this big. Have I got any company in here?
And he obviously had emotion and feeling for them because remember he said, "Oh king."
Oh, king, would this to be to your enemy?
Oh king.
How did he do that?
because his emotions followed his obedience.
I press toward the mark.
What he David's grandson anyway? David-
Ma'am?
David, what, David's grandson?
Yes, according to genealogy.
I don't know.
Yeah.
All right, let me get you these three so I can, I need to give you the next paragraph so you will put this into practice. Number one, love comes from God. Number two, if you're born of God, you can love others. And if you, the rest of that, is God is love, He loves everybody, so if we have God, then He will give us love for whomever. Number three, those able to love are not just the born again, but the people who know God, and we've already defined knowing God He is. I gave you that a while ago. Are we good? Okay, but I need to conclude this story because it didn't end there. And I just want to make an application. The retreat won't end here. I'm expecting us tomorrow to leave here on a high, on a spiritual high. And then you got to go back home and face the dishes in the dishwasher and the laundry that's piled up because you've been gone. You leave 2 days and it's like you've been gone a week. And okay,
So
so
all this time they didn't have to cook a meal.
I know, and I go back home and now I got to figure out food again. So you know, you can get spoiled to just having it handed to you. Okay,
Enjoy every minute of it.
we're trying. All right.
Well, are we gonna break for dinner?
Well, Debbie told me I have 15 more minutes. I'm just trying to give you the end of the story. Then we're close.
Well, you're down to 3 now, but go ahead.
Okay. All right. So she felt all this great relief, but it would be weeks, even months after that moment before she could honestly say that the water had turned into wine. But she was no longer frustrated, tense, or worried. So see, you can't put an instruction into practice. Sometimes God will immediately answer, but sometimes it's a process. God gave her peace and joy as she put herself in His hands, trusting Him moment by moment to infuse her life and marriage with His love. And I think that's the conclusion.
Barbara, can I?
Yes.